What's up, AP Psych? Welcome to your final lecture in the Social Psychology and Personality unit. This is all about emotion. Just like motivation, it's not its own personality theory, but understanding emotion is part of understanding how someone is and why you're like that and what your personality is all about. So let's get to it. There's really only four learning targets. However, this one in particular is beefy. Let's get into it. Okay, emotion, let's define it. A subjective state of mental and physical arousal focused on some event of importance. Please add a couple annotations. First of all, this is your affect. So your affect is like how you come off to other people, like how you show, like you might wear your emotions on your sleeve, we might say, but it's like how you show your emotions, your affect, your disposition. Subjective meaning it's a matter of opinion, how we have to self-report how we feel, others might interpret it for us. Arousal means like sometimes we call it stress or excitement, but it's that activation of our sympathetic nervous system. It's like the go time. Might be fight or flight, but it also doesn't have to be negative. It's just like we're amped up. Okay. Emotion is differentiated from reasoning and knowledge. It is its own category. It reflects internal and external factors. In other words, it's a mix of physiological activation, meaning our body responds to emotion. Expressive behaviors, our actions are a reflection of emotion, and cognitive experiences. We know, ooh, this is the one we probably think of the most. Our mind thinks and feels emotion. Okay. So taking a look at this picture in this image above, nothing to write down. I just want you to think this through. What is the physiological arousal? What's the expressive behavior? What's the conscious experience? In other words, what is their body doing? What are their actual actions that we can observe? And what are they probably thinking? We'll check in on this in class. Early theories of emotion, or trying to explain emotion rather, aim to pinpoint the occurrence of physiological and cognitive experiences of emotion. These theories tried to figure out which came first, which came second. Did they happen at the same time? Was there anything else involved when a person experiences emotion? And we have some theories. We'll touch on them a little bit, but what researchers found is that emotion's really hard to study because the body's responses are similar across fear, excitement, anger, and love. As I was saying on the first slide, in each one of these cases, our body becomes amped up, excited, stressed, aroused, alert, whether we're feeling fear, excitement, anger, and love. And so simply studying the body doesn't cut it. It doesn't explain emotion well enough. So, two different theories were part of kind of the early school of thoughts on emotion. And the first one was that the physiological and cognitive experiences occurred in succession, meaning one after the other. So, let's say you came upon a snake. Immediately, according to this first theory, your heart rate and your breathing rate would increase. That's your physiological response, your body's response. And then, because of that, you would feel fear. So you felt fear because of this uptick of your body's response. So perhaps you hit the snake or kick the snake or run from the snake, then you realize you're scared. So it's the physical action that makes you feel that way. And then other theorists said, no, it's not successive, it is simultaneous. So let's say that you walked into a surprise birthday party, surprise, woohoo, that this theory would say your heart rate increases because you are shocked and surprised. And simultaneously, your feeling of being shocked or surprised increases because your heart rate is beating so fast that they happen at the same time. Well, knowing what we know about brain science, we know that regardless of which theory it is, that our body is able to experience a quick response to emotions because everything gets processed first through the thalamus. Remember your sensory switchboard, everything from the environment, what we hear, smell, taste, touch, all that stuff, see, goes straight to the thalamus. And then the thalamus is also connected very, very closely to the limbic system, which includes the amygdala. Remember, Amy hates Dala, and this is where we feel those intense emotions, fear, anger, excitement, things like that, the strongest emotions. Then they more modern takes on emotion said, after this, we have emotion. Nope. After this, we have cognition. That's what I was trying to say. And I'm not going to start this video over to go through all that again because that was actually pretty clear till the very end. But let's take one more look at that last piece. Modern theories on emotion believe that cognition is an important piece to experience an emotion. In fact, it's required. In other words, we need to think about a situation to determine what it is that we're feeling. So imagine that we have a stimulus like a thunderstorm. Modern theories would say that we have both our physiological response and a cognitive experience at the same time, simultaneously, and that these two factors, our heart rate increasing because we heard thunder, and our brain thinking about what's going on with that storm and what that noise was, leads us to the emotion of being maybe scared if we are startled by that thunder and lightning. But remember, sometimes thunder and lightning signals a storm, and it's a great day to cozy up on the couch next to a window, hear the storm, and read a book. Have you ever done that? I love that. That leaves me feeling the emotion of happiness when there's a thunderstorm, especially if I know I'm safe in my house. So modern emotion psychologists would call this the two-factor theory. Please write that in there. It's not on my slide because we need two different factors that lead us to emotion. We need both physiological and cognition labels to call that, to result in an emotion. I also want you to note that the cognitive label is sometimes called cognitive appraisal. We need to appraise the situation, evaluate its value. What's the value of this thunderstorm? Is it dry out and now my brown grass is going to get the water it needs? Am I cozy inside and want to read a book? Or am I really scared because it sounds like that thunder is going to like hit that lightning and thunder is going to hit my house or something? Does it ruin my party? What do I feel based on the appraisal or value of the situation? Even though I'm taking a little bit to like talk this out, please realize that this appraisal happens immediately and unconsciously. Like that's the emotional experience is so quick, we barely even realize it's happening. Another theory, another modern theory, is the facial feedback hypothesis. This theory or this hypothesis supposes that emotion is an experience of change in our facial muscles, which creates expressions that cues the brain. So the brain is really what's determining emotion, but it's doing so based on feedback or messages being sent from our face muscles. So if we smile, that sends a message to our brain to feel happiness and pleasure. If we frown, that sends a signal to our brain to feel sadness or anger. Even if you play with your face right now silently while you're watching this video, you might feel that idea, that sense of emotion kind of swing back and forth of smiling to frowning. That's you could think of the phrase "fix your face" if you've ever been yelled at to fix your face by like a parent or someone, like if you're scowling to like let it go, or even fake it till you make it. That is true. That is true. But we still could question if we're already feeling the emotion. Doesn't our face respond in kind? That's the tricky thing with this hypothesis. However, if we go with the idea that our facial muscles cue our brain, it supports the theory that a physiological experience of emotion, the body's response, precedes the cognitive appraisal, that our body is responding first, then our cognition. As you can probably hear me talking about this back and forth, research testing this hypothesis has produced mixed results. So there seems to be some evidence that facial feedback hypothesis is true, but it's not conclusive yet. So you know what I think? As I always say, a little bit of both, probably. Just as another supportive note towards this, behavior feedback effect is almost the exact same thing, but with our whole body's body language and gestures and emotions are all intertwined. So our emotions have the ability to influence our own and others' emotions, thoughts, and actions. So if we walk with our shoulders back, our face kind of in a smiling position and kind of feeling trying to look confident, that often it will make us feel confident, feel happy. At the same time, if you walk or sit, kind of droop down, shoulders in, maybe walking slow, not only does that give the impression that you're bored or angry or sad, but then when other people watch you, our emotions are actually contagious. They might feel the same way. Or if someone approaches you that way, you might feel their sense of emotion just based on their gestures and body language. We'll talk about this a little bit more in class. Okay, brand new theory. I don't have a year, but brand new theory to me, and I like this one. It's a cool one. And this theory is under the category of positive psychology. We're going to go in a lot more depth into positive psychology in the next unit, but it's basically it's the psychology of looking into what makes us feel good, what makes us have a good life, or at least have a sense of calm and well-being. What makes it easy for us to withstand hard times to get back to good times. So the broaden and build theory states that positive emotions tend to broaden our awareness and help us build new skills and resiliency, or build resilience. Like we can be tough through hard times. That positive emotions make us more creative, playful, curious, experimental, and all of these things boost our well-being. And that negative emotions tend to reduce our awareness. We think very narrowly, and we can sometimes we can't like think our way out of a tough situation. We seem to have maybe mental blocks. This might overlap with the idea of an amygdala hijack, where our amygdala seems to take over our logical thinking. And so negative emotions tend to narrow our thinking and our ability to take action. Um, if you think of this from an evolutionary standpoint, survival needs make it hard to think beyond the immediate situation. So a lot of times we're just reacting kind of knee-jerk style instead of really thinking carefully and logically about a problem or a situation. So if we're angry, sad, mad, we tend to be really, really stuck in a small way of thinking and a small way of acting. Okay, a little bit more on this broaden and build theory. There is a visual model that we use to explain the broaden and build. It's the idea that if we are feeling positive emotions, love, joy, curiosity, happiness, it will help us broaden, be more open-minded to new thoughts, activities, and relationships. And through those new thoughts, activities, and relationships, it helps us build social support, resilience, skills, knowledge. Sometimes this is called resource development. Like you learn different people you could go to, strategies to go to, ways to solve your problems. And through that process, we grow and we have enhanced health, survival, and sense of fulfillment. And if we have that, we are back to feeling those positive emotions so we can continuously experience what we call an upward spiral. So if you think of a downward spiral, when you've got negative emotions and you sink deeper and deeper, and then a lot of times your actions are really bad or unhealthy, and then it puts you into even darker of a spot, or maybe even more in your own head and you can't seem to think your way out of it. So that would be a downward spiral, but the broaden and build theory is a upward spiral of how to keep you constantly growing and improving. This does not ignore negative emotions. That's why we talked about it right here. We still sometimes need to be able to respond to situations. Sometimes we just need to feel those emotions. But the more positive emotions we feel on a regular basis will help us with our resilience and resources and things like that, helping us cope when negative situations and negative emotions occur. Our next subtopic is how we express emotions. I don't have anything for you to write down during this slide here, but I do want you to think about it. How do we communicate non-verbally? Well, it varies by culture, and that's going to be a continuous theme over the next few slides. To Westerners, so like those individualistic societies that we've talked about so many times, a firm handshake conveys an outgoing, expressive personality. A glance can communicate intimacy, while darting eyes and looking all around might communicate anxiety. And we know that when two people are passionately in love, they typically spend time, quite a bit of time, gazing into each other's eyes. So, in other words, we know that we have tons of body language and other gestures and motions and ways that we hold eye contact that can all express emotions. But we probably rely on facial expressions the most. And through research of facial expressions, um, some researchers have determined that there seems to be a set of universal emotions. Happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, disgust, and fear are generally considered basic human emotions that everybody, no matter what culture you live in, or what age you are, what gender you are, what race you are, all the stuff that everybody seems to feel these same six things. This has been studied, which It's no coincidence that these are the same things featured in Inside Out, but that research on these things, on whether all people speak and understand the same facial language universally, has shown that yes, facial expressions are similar across cultures. That even when groups of people have been studied in faraway lands and kind of separate from exposure to social media, not normal movies, but commonly known movies and TV shows, things like that, that even when kind of isolated, when describing sad situations, happy situations, and so on, their facial expressions seem to be the same. And so, very often, when groups of people don't speak the same language, they can still communicate with their facial expressions to some extent. However, we do know that body language and gestures vary among cultures. Like it's social norms might be to smile a lot or stand close or stand far away or look down or look at someone in the eye. That varies by culture. Oh, yeah. How do we know these are? I was so ready with that animation. How do we know that basic human emotions are the same universally? Because of what I said about facial expressions compared to what we know about body language and gestures. Moving on. I did not time that well. To focus a little bit more on expressive differences, like why is it if we all feel the same core emotions and we express them the same on our faces, why are people across the world so different and even people within our own society so different from each other? It has to do with something called display rules and elicitors. Display rules and elicitors influence the way people from different cultures, genders, age groups, or socioeconomic classes express and interpret emotions. So display rules aren't literal rules. They are just social norms, what we are used to in terms of how much we should be expressing our emotions. We also know that there are cultural differences in elicitors, which are events or situations that trigger an emotion. So winning a game or losing a game, finding success at work, or perhaps even experiencing like a breakup or something. These might be things that trigger emotions, but they might be more or less in certain cultures versus others. So, for example, in individualistic cultures like the United States, we tend to experience very high intensity emotions and we make sure people know it. We will put them on display on purpose. We use very strong words to convey our emotions. We expect that others can, read the room, read the social cue. How am I acting right now? How should you respond to me in kind? In collectivist cultures, the expectation, their social norm is to show less intense emotional displays, to adjust their expressions to match those around them. So if you're really feeling sad and mad, you should keep that to yourself, fix your face, make sure others don't take on those feelings, those stressors. If everyone else seems to be okay, then you need to look okay too. If collectively the group is feeling something, you can feel that way too. Let me change my words. It's not that you can't feel it. You can feel whatever you want. It's whether or not it's okay to show it, put it on display. For example, Americans are often accused of smiling too much or standing too close compared to other countries. So those would be differences in display rules, just means cultural norms. Last topic is gender and emotional cues. Is it really true that women are more emotional than men? No. What we find is that males and females actually do experience similar levels of emotion, but we know that females are encouraged or it is more accepted for females to show their emotion. I do think this is starting to change throughout society as we start to encourage both genders to both be resilient and tough and withstand hard times, but also that it's okay to feel emotions, show emotions, and we try to validate that as well. But currently, based on social gender norms, females are more likely to rate themselves as emotionally open. They are often better at identifying nonverbal emotions, probably because they are trained more as they're allowed to express and describe emotions. And as I was saying, they are often better at describing emotions in a complex way when tested. So all three of these things are based on research experiments, as is this last one. Males, as I said, experience similar levels of emotion, but they are just taught not to show it. Overall, gender differences in the expression of emotions is culturally based, meaning it's cultural norms for males and females, but the actual experience of feeling these emotions tends to be more just general human based. All right, and I am feeling the emotion of proud that we just concluded another unit. Good job, everybody.